and welcome. In this lecture and in the next few lectures, we'll learn about stacking and unstacking data frames. As usual, we start by importing Pandas as PD, NumPy as NP, and from Pandas we'll import series and data frames. Let's start by looking at the definition of stacking and unstacking. Stacking a data frame means moving the innermost column index to become the innermost row index. So we have a data frame, and when we call the stack method on it, the innermost column index will be the innermost row index of the new stacked data frame. And unstacking means the reverse. It means moving the innermost row index to become the innermost column index. And the stacking method or the stack method or function results in a new data frame or series. So if the data frame is a simple one, we'll get a series. Whereas if we are using a data frame with multi-index columns, we'll get a data frame. Let's look at how we can use the stack and unstack methods. For that, we'll start by creating a data frame, a multi-index data frame. Let's create a multi-index data frame using the function called fromTuples. Don't worry about how I'm creating this. So to save time, I have made this tuple earlier. So what we'll do is Pandas has a multi-index function that we can use to create a multi-index data frame. Don't worry about how we are doing this. Okay, let's go ahead and make this. Let me run my cell first, run this tuples object, and then we'll create a data frame from this tuples object that we created. Next, let's make the index variable, and we'll save it in a variable called index. So pd.multi-index, and we'll be creating that using the method called fromTuples, and we'll pass the tuples object that we just created, and then we'll give names for our index. Let's call it first and second. This is common while using the fromTuples method to create multi-level index. Okay, now we can create our data frame, and we'll save it in a variable called data frame. So pd.data frame, and we'll use NumPy's random.randn method, and let's create an 8x2 data frame. And then for the index names, we'll pass the index object that we just created, and for columns, let's make it simple and pass column names A and B. Now let's look at our data frame. Okay, we have our column names and our index names. Okay, we have outermost index, innermost index, outer 1, 1 and 2, outer 2, 1 and 2, inner 1, inner 2. Okay, to make it simple, let's make another data frame from this data frame and consider the top half, or the outer section of this data frame. Okay, let's do that. Say data frame is equal to our data frame, and then we'll consider just the first 4 rows. so up to index 4. Let's look at our new data frame now. Okay, looks good. As you remember from the definition of stacking, it means moving the innermost column to become the innermost row index. So let's apply the stack method on our data frame object. To do that, we have our data frame object and we simply call the stack method. And let's save this in a variable called data frame, let's say stack. And let's look at our stacked data frame. So here we have, in our original data frame, we have this. The column names are now indexes, right? So now our columns are now indexes in the new innermost index in the new data frame. For this example, we only have one level of column indexing, so that column index are now the row index in our new data frame. Now let's apply the unstack method on this new data frame stack object. So for that we have our data frame stack object or data frame, and then we simply call the unstack method. And as you remember from the definition of unstack, the innermost row indexes becomes the innermost row indexes in the new data frame. So if we call that, we get our original data frame, the first data frame. So here you see A and B were the innermost index labels. Now they are the column labels or the column indexes in the new data frame. So here you see that the unstack method, it unstacks the last level by default. So by default it looks at the innermost or the last level of the index and then it unstacks it. That's what it does by default. However, we can also pass which level of index to unstack. So let me show you an example. Data frame stack, and then we'll call the unstack method, and let's pass the number 1. 1 means unstack by the inner index. So basically we have, you see here, the second index name second was the innermost index. Now the data frame is unstacked by using this last level of index. Therefore we have 1 and 2 as the new column names. We can also unstack by the outer index. For that we'll pass the number 0. It means unstack by the outer index. So we have our data frame stack object, and then we'll call the unstack method on it, and then we'll unstack by the outer index. You see now, let me call the data frame object here, data frame stack So here, now you see that we have used the outermost index to unstack by passing the 0 in our unstack function. So now we have here first outer one and outer two were the outermost index names. So we have unstacked it by that. In the new data frame, in the new unstacked data frame, they are the column names. So this is how we can unstack by passing 0 or 1 in our function. In this case, our indexes have names, first and second. We can also use those instead of passing 0 and 1. Since they have names, we can unstack by passing those names. Let me show you an example of that. So we could have said data frame stack that unstack, and then we could have said second and unstack it by the index name second, or we could have said data frame stack that data frame that unstack, and then first, so that will unstack using the index name first. Great. So this is a quick introduction to stacking and unstacking data frames. To summarize, we saw that stacking will move the innermost column to become the row index in the new data frame, and unstacking does the reverse. In the next few lectures, we'll look at more examples of stacking and unstacking. Thank you, everyone.